We're in the starting position for the Raging Tactics card reveals, but apparently Spike Brothers doesn't know what a starting signal is, because we already seen their new VR and we got a glimpse to their new mechanic. Play ball! Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today it's Tuesday once again, so we have a new card reveal and a new live stream for the upcoming new set. And today we're starting off with the reveals for the Raging Tactics, the latest extra booster set for Tachikaze, Mega Conley and Spike Brothers. These clans had to wait quite a while for the second support wave, but it's finally here. And we're gonna kick it off with a bunch new of Spike Brother cards, as that was a focus of today's live stream. However, there are some other cards that were revealed in the last couple of days, as well as a fourth Spike Brother card and two Tachikaze cards that I want to highlight in this video as well, as they do bring up some interesting interaction with the current support set that we got from Wave 1. So, because we have 6 different cards to be discussed, let's jump right into these reveals. We're gonna start off with the two Tachikaze support cards, and then we dive completely into the new Spike Brother cards, as well as their new possible mechanic for the Raging Tactics. So we're going to start off with this grade 2 that is Turbo Simulodon, a new grade 2 for Tachikaze, and its skill is very simple. It's auto on Vanguard and Vanguard Circle. When placed or when it attacks a Vanguard, you may put the top card of your deck face down as an equip gauge for one of your rear guards. So this card can generate 2 equip gauges the first turn that it's placed, because on place it generates an equip gauge, and when it attacks the Vanguard it generates another one, and then from that point onward, each and every turn it stays on the field, you generate another equip gauge. And it's pretty awesome that it's on attack, so it doesn't mean it needs to be able to hit. Even if your opponent get a defensive trigger, you can generate more equip gauges. And it does synergize really well with already established cards for standard, as we have cards like Mega Rex that gets more power the more markers you have, as well as Giga Rex, and we also have the Tusk, the Mammoth Tusk, that enables you to have the Battle Door skill, but you need to be able to generate more equip gauges faster and faster, and because it discards them each turn. So this card enables that, and it helps with that engine, so it's a pretty good card. Also for premium, it is also pretty damn good, because it synergizes with the new Stride that can restand with discarding a couple of gauges. So this one generates 2 gauges in one turn, so that's already 2 of the 5 that you need. So that's a pretty good setup. So overall, this is a pretty damn good card. The next, they also got a new grade 1 that is Savage Ogre, and her skill is act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, counter +1, and put an equip gauge on the bottom of your deck. So we are now returning equip gauges, and one of your units gets power +10k until the end of turn. This is actually a pretty amazing card, because you can now finally put equip gauges back into the deck. And this is something that has always been an issue for Tachikaze. Yes, we need a lot of equip gauges to generate certain skills or to have a lot of power onto the field, but it also works against us as we go deck out. But also a big major factor is that we are putting equip gauges blindly onto our unit, so we don't know what we're equipping or not. So there's a high chance you're gonna equip a lot of triggers. So this card allows you to put those equipped triggers back into your deck, so that's pretty good. Also, the +10k is pretty nice added bonus in general, but it's sadly a counterblast, and Tachikaze doesn't have any countercharge engine, so hopefully they're gonna get a countercharger in this set, so this card would become a pretty good staple for the clan in general. But in premium context, this is pretty damn amazing, as you get all the pluses. It is also enough countercharge possibilities in premium, so there is no downside to this card. But also, it gives any unit +10k, so you can give your Vanguard +10k, and you have enough restanding Vanguards in Tachikaze, so you get more benefit from that +10k power. So overall, this is a very good addition for Tachikaze in general. So as far as we got for Tachikaze, they are looking pretty interesting as far as now, because they just got 2 very generic support cards, but they are pretty damn good in general. So I'm very curious of what the rest of the support is going to be and if they're going to get a new focus in a new type of mechanic. Because what we've seen with the new Spike Brother cards, they at least get a new type of mechanic. So let's jump right into the cards and see what that is. The first card that I want to talk about is this new grade 1 that is Offensive Punter. And we saw this card last week, and it's a pretty damn good card even for a rare, as its skills are Auto and Vanguard Circle. When it boosts, cost Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets power plus 2k until the end of battle. At the end of that battle, draw a card and put this unit on the bottom of your deck. So for one Soul Blast, this becomes a solid 10k booster, but it also puts itself back into the deck and you get a new card for it into place. And that's a pretty good effect, as not only do you draw from it, but you also don't go through deck out, and you can enable this to get it later with other skills back from the deck onto the field. So you have a good cycle card, and it's a great one that can turn into anything else. It can turn into a good combo piece. It can turn into a very good defensive card. So overall for a Soul Blast, that's a pretty decent skill in its own right, as it does enable some good options for the clan itself. But then we get the second ability, and it's a very simple skill, as it's auto. When rode upon, you may call this card to the Vanguard Circle. So we see a Forerunner skill on a grade 1. That's pretty good, as that also enables its first ability without anything on the field. So it's a solid +1 when you can ride it, but it's also a +1, +0 cycle card with its other skill for a Soul Blast. However, when you take these two skills in mind, that's a -2 on your soul, as the second ability, when you can call it from the soul for free, it's technically still a minus on your soul, as you remove the card from your soul. And with the previous archetype that we've seen, with Cyfried and all the other cards that can put themselves into the soul, that shouldn't really be a problem, as you are generating a lot of excess soul in that build. So this is a good addition for that specific build. However, when we take a look at the new cards, you're gonna see a mighty problem that can arise with the amount of soul blasting you're gonna do, or that you're gonna need. So let's jump right into the cards that were revealed in today's livestream for Spike Brothers. So first off, we've got a grade 2 common card that is Provoke Needle. And its skill is very simple, continues on Vanguard Circle. If it's on a Vanguard Circle with a force marker, this unit gets power plus 10k. So when you have a force 1 or a force 2 underneath it, it gains another 10k power. So without the addition of the force marker, it already becomes a 20k attacker. It then can turn into a 30k with force 1, or it can become a 20k with 2 crits. So overall, that's pretty decent. However, it's not really something amazing. It is very neat to see that it interacts with force marker in general, and that's what we're going to see with the rest of the cards, that they're going to interact really well with force markers, but on a different skill than you're thinking. Because if we take a look at the other grade 2 that was revealed today, you're going to see something interesting, as we have Deranged Thaddeus, and its skills are Auto and Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, cost Counterblast 1 and move all of your force markers to this unit circle. So this card moves everything onto this card, and then you attack. That's pretty nuts, because that means you're reusing your force markers without actually relying on multiple force markers. So what this means is that when you have 2 force markers underneath a single unit, that unit gets a power plus 20k boost, but then this unit attacks, and for a counterblast, you move that 20k power onto him. That's pretty insane, as it helps you reusing the power, and that's pretty good. Also in a scenario where opponent kills off your unit where the force markers are underneath, and you don't have a good way to replace a unit to benefit from that force marker power, this card can then say, you know what, because I cannot really call something in that column, well then I move it to this unit and still benefit from my force markers that I generated throughout the game. So this is a very interesting tactic and mechanic for Spike Brothers. But then we get a second ability, and that's just the icing on the cake for this unit, and it's Auto Vanguard Circle. When an attack hits, if this unit circle has a force marker, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So on hit with a marker, retire something. So that's pretty neat extra addition to what its first skill already allows, and it's basically a very solid beat stick with a potential on hit with retire effect. And just like the other grade 2 that we saw, they synergizes with the fact that you have force markers beneath your units. But also what we see with this grade 2 is that we can also move markers from units to units, and that's pretty dangerous. But then we get to the VR, and then we basically see how this whole mechanic works, and that is of course Dead Heat Bull Spike, and its skills are Auto and Vanguard Circle. When your unit attacks, cast Soul Blast 1 and move all of your force markers to that unit circle. So basically what the grade 2 does for Counter Blast, the VR does it for everybody for a Soul Blast. So you can reuse every marker for each and every attack. So when a Vanguard attacks, Soul Blast 1, it gains all the markers. When another unit attacks, you Soul Blast another one, and the power goes and the markers go to that unit. Then your Vanguard attacks maybe, and you use it again, and then all the markers go to your Vanguard. It's basically how we've seen with Cyphered, that we got multiple cards that goes into the soul and then fetch another copy of that card and gave it power. Then we have Cyphered that could do the exact same thing, but then for any unit. This is basically the same addition, but then with a new mechanic. And this is very dangerous for Spike Brothers and for anybody that's facing the clan, because with Force 1, if you have 2 or 3 markers, then it means that every attack has an additional 30k. Not just one unit have 30k or every unit has plus 10k. No, every attack has potentially plus 30k. But you can also go for a super aggro grade 3 turn on your turn 3, because you can take Force 2 and then give every unit the extra crit, because you don't need an extra marker from that point onward, as every unit can use that same marker. And then that means you have 3 attacks that come with an extra crit. So that's already pretty dangerous in its own right. But then, of course, he got a second ability, and that's Auto and Vanguard Circle. Once per turn, when the attack of one of your units on a circle with a force marker does not hit, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and retire it. Yeah, that is pretty good, because that's a +2 in card difference. You draw one, so that's a +1, and your opponent loses a rear guard, so that's a -1 on their part. So in card economy, that's a +2. That doesn't cost anything. It is just when your unit does not hit. And that's gonna happen basically a couple of times during the game, because they're not gonna allow every attack hits, because if that happens, then after 2 turns they're dead. You're probably gonna get a lot of value out of his second ability, and even though it's a once per turn, that doesn't matter, because that's every turn you're gonna retire something, and every turn you're gonna draw an additional card. The only downside to this new mechanic, how I'm looking at it, is that it's very resource heavy in a way that we've seen with the cards that we have got right now. Because the Soul Blast 1, if we're using it on turn 1, that's basically 2 soul you're going to use, because you have 1 marker already on the unit that attacks, then you're going to move it once to another unit, and then move it again to another unit. So that's already 2 soul you're using. But if we're already looking at the grade 1 that we just talked about, that was revealed a couple of days ago, that unit also uses soul, and potentially 2 soul if you're gonna ride it. So that's a pretty heavy cost on the soul part. However, we have Cyphered, and we can run it as an additional grade 3 that can allow you to generate soul, because you can put units into the soul. We can also run maybe 1 or 2 of the old cards, like Maximum maybe as a support card that goes into the soul, fetch another copy to have some other way to generate soul. But we have to wait and see for the rest of the support, because we only got 4 cards, so it's too early to decide how everything works. But I think, as it stands now, that this deck needs to watch out for the amount of resources they're going to use, because it looks like they're going pretty damn fast through them with the soul and the counterblast as well. However, I don't think the counterblast is going to be an issue, as that is a nice addition, because the grade 2 uses it for a counterblast and the grade 3 on its own uses soul blast, so you can change it up in certain situation that when you want to use the counterblast cost or maybe the soul blast. So that's an interesting take on the skill, because in Cyphered's case, it was almost redundant to use the other skills for the units themselves. You already could put them into the soul with Cyphered, because Cyphered also gains an additional 10k himself. So there wasn't really that much incentive to use something like Maximum or High Speed Brocky's own ability to activate that skill. In this case, with the Grade 2 and the Grade 3, there is, because there's a difference in skill cost, and that can help you to sustain your resources throughout prolonged games. So it is looking pretty interesting, and this new mechanic looks a little bit about playing American football with the ball itself, because they're passing the ball that is the markers from unit to unit. So it's a little bit interesting mechanic that they incorporate, and when you put in a little bit flavor around it with saying they're passing the ball, then it makes sense that they added this to Spike Brothers. And I'm very curious how far they're going to take it, what they're going to do with it, because there's a lot of potential. That's basically everything that we've seen for the new card reveals for the Raging Tactics, but that wasn't the only thing that was announced today, as they also announced a new ban list. Not a new ban list today, but they announced the announcement of a ban list that's going to happen next week, the 20th of August. And I'm very curious of what they're gonna do, if it's another empty ban list with no new updates, or they're actually gonna hit something. So it depends. Maybe I'm gonna do a prediction list on that ban list. I'm not sure if I want to do that, or if there's anything to talk about. If you're curious of what my opinion or my takes on it, then leave it in the comments down below, and maybe I do a prediction list with my personal take on what's the standing is for standard as well as premium with the current meta, if a certain hit is necessary or not, but basically on my take on it, because everybody has his own opinion on what needs to be hit and what's not. So let me know in the comments down below if you're interested in that or not. Also, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of all these new cards that we got for Tachikaze as well as Spike Brothers, as there is a lot of interesting stuff, and even though it's only the beginning for the Raging Tactics, I am very curious if they're gonna continue this new mechanic train with all the new additions, because in the previous set with these three clans, we got the introduction of the equip gauge for Tachikaze, so maybe this new force thing for Spike Brothers is a new mechanic they're gonna introduce in this set. Maybe they're gonna do also something for Mega Conley. So we have to wait and see for the upcoming weeks when all these reveals are gonna keep coming down the pipelines, and we're gonna see more tits and bits about all these cards for this set. But that's about everything for this video. As always, I want to thank my Patreon supporters for making this video and everything that's happening on the channel possible. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel and everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I'll see you guys in the next one.